monster, monster, monster!
At some point in my early years I was given a Commodore 64 computer. I think it may have originally belonged to my uncle, though I've no idea what he would have used it for. Sam Fox's strip poker perhaps? Growing up poor in East London in the 1980s, you'd take what you could get. I ended up amassing loads of games, most of them were from the local market stall, and several buckets of cassette tapes to browse through every Saturday. Thanks to the relatively cheap price of a couple of quid per game, my mum would usually let me buy a few every week. Most of them were Guff TV cartoon tie-ins because I was maybe 4 to 6 years old and drawn to familiar characters and worlds. I had Postman Pat, Super Ted, Turtles, Huxley fucking Pig. So why I decided to go for the Castles of Dr. Creep is a mystery, but buy it I did, and here I am today, talking into a microphone to a handful of people on the World Wide Web 35 years later, but likely no wiser. Let me tell you why this random game would go on to become my most memorable C64 game that I still think about today. The Castles of Dr. Creep was developed by Ed Hobbs and published by Broderbund Software in 1985. Not much information about Hobbs exists online, though it appears he had a short stint making a handful of small indie titles between 1982 and 2000. His website, viewable via the Wayback Machine, offers some insight into his other coding and programming work experiences. From what I can find, he developed Dr. Creep entirely solo, which is fascinating to me considering the depth of the game. The cover art sets the mood perfectly. You're in a dungeon with a barred window from which a castle can be seen in the foreboding darkness, illuminated by moonlight. A rat stands above a key on the windowsill, glowing red eyes. Has the rat brought you the key, or is he trying to steal it from you? So many questions. Once you'd survived the epilepsy-inducing loading screen, Castles of Dr. Creep begins with a long multi-screen synopsis of the plot, followed by something I'd never seen before, a tutorial level. Bear in mind I'm about 4 or 5 years old, it's roughly 1990, and other games I'd played usually dropped you straight into the game with zero information whatsoever, reserving that stuff for the instructions written inside the tape cover. But this game had many explanatory screens of mechanics, traps and hazards you'd face as you play. For what it's worth, this game was definitely aimed at older gamers and was rather complicated in its systems and design. The general idea of the game is that you're looking for a nice, cosy Transylvanian home for yourself, because clearly you love the spooky aesthetics and dislike garlic and having friends. Your friendly neighbourhood estate agent supplies 13 properties to visit, all of which belong to the eponymous Dr. Creep, an unseen landlord who spends much of his time crafting devious mazes and escape rooms long before they were fashionable. Each castle you visit is more difficult and fiendish than the last. I think it's a good idea at this point to consider a different estate agency. Your goal is to reach the exit. Simple enough, you'd think. Though these castles are riddled with all sorts of traps and obstacles to make your house hunting choices very miserable indeed. Ladders, conveyor belts, switches, electricity, Frankenstein, teleports, mummy, force fields, raygun. Fun for all the family. The game is played room by room, a map appearing between screens showing your relative position in the grand scheme of things. There's no indication of where the exit is, leaving you to discover the castle layout piece by piece. There can be a lot of backtracking in order to activate switches to progress, by which I mean the fourth time of circling a room can become rather tedious. And as for the music, there isn't any during the game. The spooky sound effects of monsters waking and the sharp clack of switches being pulled are your audible entertainment here. You could always provide your own atmospheric horror soundtrack to fill the void. When you're killed by something evil lurking in the dark, you lose one of your 3 lives and get sent back to the starting room. Unless you're like me, spamming save states and using infinite lives because this game is rock hard enough as it is. I know it's not the purest experience, but as I've got older I've found having modern conveniences such as save states incredibly useful, making the older games far more accessible and fun, rather than frustrating. I've slid down many a pole a bit too far and missed a platform because of stiff controls. It's much quicker to reload than have to go the tedious long way back round. This is a long, slow-paced game, with some castles taking about an hour to get through, longer if you're new to the game. As a kid I never got anywhere further than the tutorial, and today as I approach my 40s I'm still struggling with some of the puzzles and unreliable controls. Look past the difficulty of the game though, and it's clear that the architect behind the design, Ed Hobbs, was a genius, devious puzzle designer. He donated scans of his hand-drawn designs for all maps and rooms to an open source recompilation project. GitHub link in the description. It's fascinating to see how he mapped out every single room on graph paper in intricate detail. You could say Hobbs is the embodiment of the titular Dr. Creep himself. In that case, I think it'd be very wise to politely decline an invitation to visit him at home. And did I mention the whole game is playable in co-op? Yes, every castle, every room is playable with a buddy by your side. You can split up and tackle separate rooms, though when doing so players will have to take turns as opposed to having a split-screen simultaneous experience. As a kid I didn't have anyone to play this with, so for the 40th anniversary of its release, I recorded my first ever couch co-op experience navigating the dungeon with Retro Hutch channel founder Joe. The full video of our adventure will be available on the channel soon after this retrospective goes live. Come for the chill vibes, enjoy the laughter, stay for the inevitable deaths. Oh, buggery! Buggery,
That's
buggery,
it.
buggery.
What's he gonna do?
No.
Oh. Fair enough.
Fun fact, I always assumed there was zero music in the game until we'd left it idle for a few minutes and this happened.
I think if the controls was more snappy...
Wait. There's music? I don't know what to say, there's music? I have never, when I was a kid growing up, I have never heard music in this game. Unfortunately, it appears that Ed Hobbs is no longer with us. An obituary posted online appears to suggest he passed away quite recently. His enduring legacy lives on, with ports of Dr. Creep available on both Steam and the Microsoft Store, if you can't be arsed with the C64 emulation setup. Quite cheap at the time of writing too, so why not give it a go? I've linked them in the description below, along with the recompilation GitHub. Did you endure and survive the challenges of Dr. Creep's castles? Did you have difficulties entering doors? Let us know in the comments below. It's a shame there's no werewolves in this game, otherwise I would have used my like and subscribe joke. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm off to see my mummy. Ah, bollocks, not again.